Hello, and thank you for joining us once again. It's day 18 of our lengthy diatribes about the current crisis we're facing and all the happy stuff. And that's kind of what it's all about at the end of the day, really.
And it's Friday.
It is. It's
lockdown.
Not only it's Friday, not only it's lockdown, not only it's day 18, but it's Good Friday. So we've got to search in our little box and find out some of the good stuff that's going on, and then halfway through we'll be sort of broadening out this discussion more than kind of the news that's going on around this particular thing, especially as it's a bank holiday and all the journalists are on holiday, so there's nothing for me to read on there. We'll be opening things up actually for the whole of the Easter break and talking about some of the bigger things as well, which will be great. But thank you once again for coming into our living room tonight, and we're sitting around with I've got my best dad ever mug. I've also got we've got our certain brand of coffee, but others are available. We've got some bananas and cheese to feast on, because it's some hungry work doing these, I tell you. But have we got a lot of stuff to chat to tonight? Hello, thank you for joining us. Well, let's start at the beginning, which makes a bit of a difference from starting at the end, doesn't it, really? Good evening to you, Liz. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're talking about all the happy stuff and a few peripheral things about this COVID thing until everybody gets totally fed up with it and we start talking about other things completely. Do you know what we did? To cheer ourselves up last night after we'd finished this? We got out the DVD collection. We were having a look through because we're kind of Luddites in that sense, and we use old tech. And we came across, hello, Chrissy, thank you for joining us this evening. And hello, Jeremy, the top speaker in the land. It's very good to have you on board. What we did to cheer ourselves up yesterday, and I must at this point eat a banana. We looked through our DVD collection and we found an old BBC television show from 2008 called Survivors. Now, Survivors is a great big pandemic, much more serious than this one, that like wipes out the entire country in the space of a couple of hours, literally, leaving a group of about 10 folks, a bit like Robin Hood and his merry men and women, setting up camp, and people from all walks of life. And the beginning's a bit grim in a sense, because you see all the bodies and stuff and everything, but halfway through the episode, like, all the motorways have been cleared, and all the buildings are empty, and you can just go into the supermarket and help yourself to stuff and everything without being chased around by the security guards like I always am when I try to do that. Only kidding. But the serious point of this show was it was to show kind of humanity fighting back in the sense of something pretty damn awful. Hello, Kevin. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm just telling you about the insane thing that Ian and I did last night after finishing this video. We sat down with the BBC TV show Survivors about a really nasty pandemic that wipes everybody out. But it has a kind of good ending, because at the end of the day, they all set themselves up in a little community. They find a disused farmhouse or something, and they carry on their life from there. Interestingly, at the beginning of this film, while this pandemic is very, very serious and all the members of the government are laid up in bed and all this kind of thing, they find this one spokesperson who is talking a load of nonsense to the nation just to keep everybody's spirits up. So always read between the lines about those government things they tell you. A very good evening to two of my very good radio friends, to Jeff and to Paul, also to Kurush, who's just joined us. Thank you for dropping into our living room on this Friday evening. Hope that your day has been, on the whole, overall, on balance, good, as I think ours has been, really. Yeah.
We've been doing the best of it. Rearranging plans that we started at the beginning of the year, trying to refocus everything. Oh God, has been a bit hectic.
But for 18 days, I've got some plants that we're supposed to be repotting, and they're just sitting in water in the kitchen in a saucer. And probably before something drops up, we better do something about that. Paul Christopher says, pandemic, it could never happen here. Indeed. And Paul, we are about 1 million miles away tonight, even though you live just down the road. And it was a 5-minute walk to your house, but I'd be surrounded by troops and arrested and led away in handcuffs at the moment. So we'll have to restrict it to this. Hello, Anita. Thank you for joining us on this up and running, quite exciting Friday evening. Indeed. Now, here's the thing. This is a bit of a techie thing, actually. I came across this article from a lady called Zanya Stamataki, writing in the Guardian about and she's a what is she? Let's scroll to the bottom and we'll see her. She is a senior lecturer and researcher in viral immunology at the University of Birmingham, and she's talking about what is our most potent weapon against COVID-19. Well, I would say washing your hands and staying away from people. Actually, that's not what her articles are on. And while I think of it, this is a particularly pertinent thing for all the Keep Fit people who are going out there doing our daily exercise, as Boris told us we have to do. Do you know how when an aeroplane flies along, there's a trail of stuff behind it called a slipstream, and actually they put these things into wind tunnels. This is very important, there's a trail of stuff behind it, and you can see the trails behind aeroplanes that go in the sky. Now, unfortunately, and this is not a doctor has said this, I'm going to be having a chat to my friend Dr. Mike in a few days' time. We're going to be doing an update on what he knows. He's right now at the front line in A&E fighting this thing, so he's going to come on and talk to us. But apparently, people with COVID-19 potentially, an engineer wrote this, not a doctor, potentially leave a little trail of droplets behind them in the same way that an aeroplane might. So when the jogger comes along, when the cyclist comes along, and there's a lot of cyclists here, you need to give them a very wide berth, more than 2 meters, a lot more than 2 meters. A very good evening to you, Brian. Hope things are good with you today, sir. And thank you for joining us more than once. I would have thought it'd been enough to scare anybody off seeing us for 2 minutes. It's great to have you on board. So people jogging, people cycling, they are potentially behind them, leaving a trail of infectious stuff. So don't get too close to that fellow on the bike, that's me, or to the one jogging, that's Irma. Just give us a bit of a wide berth, and that's kind of quite a good way to stay safe, I suppose.
Yes, that's right. I think that's why there's a lot of misconception about what's the safest distance to do. But when we are jogging, at least me as a jogger, you tend to build a lot of lactic acid, and that has to come out some way. So you develop a few techniques as you go along. So that could potentially cause droplets, and that could potentially harm other fellow humans. Like I said, we don't know much about this virus yet in terms of how it behaves. So the best thing that we can do is just to stay indoors and hopefully try to keep fit indoors as well. Or go for just a gentle walk in which you're going to keep your box to yourself, because that's what we all do. We are carriers, potential carriers. So yeah, makes sense.
It does. Hello, Andy. Thanks for joining us. And hello, Wendy. It's very nice to have you with us this evening. Wendy listens every week now to my radio show, which is so nice. And it's nice to actually see you and have you here in the living room and invite you into our little sort of cup of tea thing. I was reading this extremely long article in the Guardian newspaper by a lady called Zanya Stamataki. She's a lecturer and researcher in viral immunology, and I'm just going to pull out one sentence, which is the upbeat sentence that I've come along. Experience has taught us that vaccines are able to eradicate infections from this planet. For example, smallpox. And medicines against viruses that don't embed their genetic material to our own. For example, Hep C can also achieve this. So these viruses are quite fragile in a way, because first of all, a little thing with soap just makes them evaporate, and secondly, the only way they can reproduce is inside one of us, and the only way they're going to get in one of us is if we sort of either sneeze on somebody or get sneezed on by somebody, or somebody sneezes on a doorknob or something, or sneezes into their hand and touches the doorknob or the escalator, the balustrade at the side of the escalator or something like this, and then we touch it, and then we rub our eyes or nose or something. So it ain't very difficult to stay healthy from this, and we need to keep 2 meters away from all those folks milling around out there, except if they're on a bicycle or jogging or something, and then we need to give them about 4 or 5 meters leeway, which was some new information that we found tonight. Yes, hello, Jakub. Thank you for your company this evening.
That's right.
So moving on kind of down this list, we hop over to Somerset. where we find some lockdown lawbreakers. That's a great bit of alliteration, isn't it? And our boys in blue are chasing them, and it is absolutely insane to find people all either having birthday parties or weddings, which are lovely things mostly, but not. No, come on, please just postpone that birthday a bit. Imagine, look, put yourself in the shoes of somebody whose birthday is on February the 29th. They've got to wait 4 years for their birthday. We're only asking you to wait a few days, so come on. Let's do that. We learnt a new word, didn't we, for our friend Anna today, about these people who flaunt all these lockdowns. COVIDiots.
COVIDiots. Yeah,
I think that's wonderful. I've not heard it before. It perfectly describes these people, and in terms of survival of the fittest. Well, these guys who are dumb enough to go out at the moment are first of all risking lives. They're risking their own lives. They're risking the lives of other people, and they're risking the medics who have to stitch them all together again. Yeah. So don't do it.
Yeah. Then you get to see people saying, "Oh, I'm doing this because of my mental health." We all having mental issues in terms that we are looking, our reality as we know it is completely gone and trashed out the window. So we are trying to cope. So we all potentially have mental situations to deal with. So, but if you think of the people out there, the doctors, nurses, cleaners, people that are out there looking after us, and it's sad for them to see someone that they're looking after go.
Absolutely.
Just because we are happily out there spreading the virus because of our mental health. We are all in this together, or we're not, as a race.
Hello, Jake, another Colchester lad. Thanks for joining us this evening. In fact, I'll be speaking to another Colchester lad who also, all three of us are Colchester lads, and we're involved with this radio station called Cam FM. So I'll be talking to Dr. Mike Brooks in a few days' time, who is at the front line fighting this coronavirus thing in A&E at a hospital called the Paget, and we'll be sort of coming up to speed with that in the not too distant future. But anyway, idiots in cars going to beauty spots. So this I could go on a rant for that for the rest of the evening. I really could. Oh, it boils my blood. It really does. And I think it's totally unfair. Sarah, hello. How was your day? Thanks for joining us in our living room today, which is nice. Did you see the thing about Notre Dame today? That they were celebrating Good Friday there, and it was only about half a dozen people performing the service, but 7 people were present for the 40-minute service, and I believe they had sort of hazardous stuff underneath their cassocks. As you do, and then it was all kind of televised, and that's a good way to do things, isn't it, really? And they had this crown of thorns that had survived the fire in Notre Dame, which was about a year ago. It was about a year ago. What a year it's been. Do you know the most useless present that I've had this year?
What was it?
A 2020 diary. What the hell am I going to use that for? Woke up, looked at the walls, had lunch, looked at the walls, went to sleep again. I mean, come on. I wouldn't give you 10p for it. Hi, Sarah.
As a matter of fact, I still use mine, because I need to keep more or less the things I need to do. I need to adhere certain times to do work.
Being a terrible cheapskate, I only buy these diaries anyway, sort of at the end of January or something when they're half price anyway. But I was robbed. I want my 50p back. I really do. And
Yes, you buy yours in February, March, once they're cheap.
Absolutely. So roadblocks have been out in Europe, stopping people from going around. I'm not entirely against that because, really, unless it's a matter of literally life and death, you shouldn't be going out there risking yourself. Hello, Barry. How are you doing this evening, sir? And so I think we can endorse that. But look, policemen going through your shopping. This is not on at all. They've been here in the UK. Certain overzealous police forces have been looking at people's shopping and saying that's not essential, mate.
Really?
Not the policemen talk in that sort of voice.
Really?
Yes, they have. And look, we need to keep a balance on this thing. It's quite ridiculous if the supermarket sells skipping ropes alongside the essentials like chocolate and biscuits, then for goodness sake, let them buy a shopping rope. It should be up to a skipping rope. It should be up to the shopkeeper. It should be up to.
What about if your kettle breaks down? You have to get another kettle.
Well, exactly.
For me, that would be essential.
Well, I know you'd have to have a debate with some fella about this, and that again is just absurd.
Makeup, and to put my face every day.
It is
even though I'm
absurd.
here.
Makeup. This is essential stuff. Absolutely. How can we be without it? Now, Sky News today published the last known photograph of our PM, looking a bit retouched. Actually, I think it's been photoshopped a bit.
Is that a recent photo
That,
of him?
that, that is a recent photo of him, but that's just before he went into hospital, and it's a selfie. But it's good to see that he's up and about again. Let us, however, spare a thought for those who are not. And just because one fellow's recovered, there's still he hasn't completely recovered, but there's still an awfully long way to go before we turn that corner. There are big numbers today of people dying from this, but as the spreadsheet king, undisputed, nobody's yet challenged my position. There's my crown. I can tell you it's slowing right down, because I'm using the same kind of metrics in my spreadsheets that they use to check share prices and all that kind of stuff, and I can tell you the rate of increase in this infection is slowing day by day by day, so it is going to peak quite soon. It would have peaked tomorrow if everybody had stayed at home, but it'll probably go on another week longer now, because of people who need to have their sort of get-togethers and are opening secret pubs in Northamptonshire or something after hours to get together and drink with their mates, and what have you.
Yeah, I was trying to find the live. Yeah, that's right. So what habits have you created during this time? I was listening to one of our friends, Jamie Medill. He was talking about meditation, yeah, because he's a very, very up and go kind of person. So now that he has had time to really reflect upon himself and implement meditation in his daily habits, which is good. I mean, we have that practicality of increase our habits and our own good deeds to ourselves. There are about 2,000 different kinds of meditation. Did you know? Different
I
kind
did
of,
not.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you find, but I think meditation is nothing other but to reflect upon your acts and upon what you do. Just to apply a little bit of knowledge to your own behaviors and just introspect reflection of what you do.
Yes.
5 minutes.
Oh, I think that's
10
right.
minutes.
I think that's
So
right.
long you are true to yourself within that. It doesn't mean that you have to just go in yourself and go, it is good if you can manage that kind of technology. Everything is about build up technology in different ways, practices to do meditation. But anything can be written in a book. So long your mind is focused into something, that's all it is.
Now, my good friend Paul, hello, and thank you for sticking with us, says this is brilliant. He says drivers need to be especially careful right now because they could catch car owner virus. That's a good one. That's a good one, sir. Thank you. I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, what's been going on? You can't make up some of this stuff. This is beyond absurd. But in Hungary, there's an orchestra that has been driving around with loud hailers. Like normally, it's only politicians that do that, really, isn't it? They drive around, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. These guys have been airing concerts out of their automobiles, and it's a lovely story, really. Playing uplifting classics from loudspeakers. Perhaps not quite the same experience as being in the old concert hall, listening with the sort of opera glasses, trying to spot the trombonists and all this kind of stuff. But I think it's absolutely great. I think it's absolutely great. Who was I can't remember which musician it was the other day, but it was somebody who had a kind of I wonder if it was the Beatles on Abbey Road, but they were saying that it was absolutely funny because we used to have very, very strict rules here in the UK about musicians and how long they could perform and this and that. There was a very, very famous thing, which might have been one of the tracks on Abbey Road, I won't swear to it, where apparently you can hear the wind players packing up their instruments about a minute before the track ends, because it hits 6 o'clock and they say, right, time's up, we're off home. And so apparently that was then left in the mix as a sort of joke. For the cognoscente, so kind of, but that's a nice little story there, I thought, anyway, from Hungary.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Now, if you're a panda, and if you want to increase your species, even when you're in captivity, for goodness sake, don't you want to have a bit of privacy for that special moment? I mean, what more can I say?
Oh, wow.
And well, indeed, absolutely. So in Hong Kong, with all these people gawping through the cages, it's a bit dampening on the old libido. It's not really very sort of conducive to that kind of thing. And so apparently in Hong Kong, where the pandas had seen very little inclination to mate, they're now kind of getting it together, even though they're middle-aged people doing that naughty stuff, or people, well, I'd say middle-aged giant pandas. Their names are Ying Ying and Li Li. They've been at a place called Ocean Park since 2007, but they haven't had much inclination in furthering the species. But the old artificial insemination or whatever hasn't worked, but now they're getting it together. Now that the opportunity arises quite extraordinarily, and now this reminds me of another story that I also saw. This is a story from this morning where they asked British people what they would like to do after the lockdown ends, and do tell us in the comments.
Oh my God!
Apparently, I know, who would have thought it, because Brits are so kind of stiff upper lip and blah, 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 but all they want to do is go out for dinner and then do that other thing. You cannot make it up, can you? So giant pandas and Brits, they're all at it. What is the world coming to, I ask you? I mean,
well, they've probably been distancing themselves, so it's bound to happen anyway.
Well, yeah, it's certainly the opposite of social distancing. Let's put it that way. I mean, I'm going to have to hand over you for a second because I can't carry on here.
No, another thing is that I was talking to one of my friends today who I really like this girl very much. She's a very, very beautiful friend of mine. And we were saying, okay, well, we seem to be arguing, obviously, with our significant others. And I says, well, that's normal. It's part of a relationship to argue with your partner, your friend, your spouse, or anything. That's just... So it's normal. And I says, really? But we thought we were going to break up. I says, no, congratulations, you're a normal couple. Because so long the arguments are healthy, and the aim of arguments, for me, in this case, is to really reach that balance between two people trying to cohabit together. We are different, we were raised differently, so we're just here together because of that, the magic thing called love. But then we are individuals at the end of the day, so we need to find that nice medium within the argument's sake, so long they are respectful to each other. I mean, respectful arguments, healthy arguments.
Yeah, I mean, see, you couldn't have an argument with a flower pot, could you?
You could.
You could?
Yeah, it could be even one of a therapy. There's one of the, according to some psychologists that I can remember, a good therapy is that if you're really, really very angry, always keep at hand a box full of cuddly or things like that, and just smash it and break it, and that's it.
Well, because I mean,
You have to clean it later.
There are those who allege, aren't they, that His Royal Highness Prince Charles talks to his plants, but I bet he doesn't argue with them.
Oh, there is nothing better than hugging a tree.
Well, there we go.
Magic.
I'm thinking now good evening, Gaurav. Thanks for joining us, and Brian. Hello, the king of country music. It's great to have you aboard with us this evening. I'm remembering a puppet show that was a satirical puppet show, and I think they're bringing it back. Actually, it was called Spitting Image, and Prince Charles was always the cab driver driving along and putting the world to rights. It was it was so true, because he used to write letters to ministers and that kind of thing, even though he wasn't the monarch and everything. I really think we should change the look of these buildings. But anyway, there we go.
Well, listen to this. This is our friendship. It says, with friends you grow wings. Alone, you are a single feather in disgrace. With them you master the wind, but alone, you're blown in all directions. Ooh.
That's very true. That's very true. Well, this is an extraordinary thing, because again, there's a story in the press today that I was just reading about, which is loading on the computer at the moment, so I'll have to sort of guess what it might say. But isn't that extraordinary? I bet that's this. I bet that's this thing, because we're using while we're doing the streaming. You see, we're getting a bit of extra bandwidth for the little snippets I've got on here, by virtue of this telephone made by Mr. Jobs' company, and I'm not a great fan of them, because stuff keeps dropping out and all that, you know, and so
I think Samsungs are better.
oh, there we go. You see, once you talk about it, the engineers at that company sort of pull their fingers out and get it all together. So there are a couple of neighbours who've been swapping letters. I mentioned earlier that in one of the previous ones that I've got an 89-year-old uncle. And he used to pop round, or they used to take it in turns, he and his next door neighbour, to pop round for a cuppa once a week, which I think is terribly nice. And now they only shout over the fence, maintaining a safe and respectful distance. And I'll have to ring him up actually tomorrow and tell him that if one of them is cycling around the garden, they've got to keep a bit more distance, or jogging. But here are a couple of neighbours. One is 93 years old, and one is 5 years old, and they've started a really nice correspondence. And so
Pen pal.
lockdown pen pals, and that's absolutely lovely. So Kieran is 5 years old, and he lives at number 9, and he sent a drawing of a rainbow with a letter to Ron at number 24, and Kieran's letter reads, this is the Guardian again, I have to stay at home because of the coronavirus. I just wanted to check if you're okay. I've drawn a rainbow to remind you that you are not alone. Please write back if you can. That's lovely. And then Ron, who lives at number 24 and is 93, was so delighted that he put the drawing in the window. And he wrote back as well. Like you, I'm in isolation, so it was so nice to hear of your concern for me. I was the first person to move into this crescent in 1955, he says. And I've been here ever since. Oh, that's absolutely... That's so touching. It's very, very nice, actually.
You do get emotional. Wow.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful. Ron continues, the situation is very bad. We must all do our very best to overcome it, and hopefully all come out of it in good health again. And this was posted on Twitter by a lady called Louisa. She's 23 years old, and Ron is her granddad, and he lives alone in Wolverhampton, where he's self-isolating, but in good health. And you know, let us think about the people who are self-isolating. Oh, good evening, Ian. Thanks for joining us this evening. We just on the way here, we were a bit late actually, because something came through the letterbox, and I overcame I just had to go and see what it was, you see. And it was another of these bits of paper. They're very active in our community, and they're posting regularly, I'd say. You know, it's about the third one we've had through our letterbox, little notes to say you're not alone. Here's a WhatsApp group you can join, and here are our phone numbers, here are our email addresses, so that the local community can kind of stay in touch, help each other with shopping, and all those kinds of things, or just, you know, be a friendly voice at the end of the phone if somebody's feeling a bit lonely. So you know, if that's not happening in your community where you live, please make it happen.
Yeah.
You can be the person who sends that out.
Yeah, this lockdown is going to go for quite a little while yet.
We heard today, yes, that it's going to be extended only because of the COVIDiots who insist on going out. And you know, let's not do that. Let's not do that. And ministers as well. Think, for goodness sake, ministers doing this and going, oh well, I'll just have a drive to my other home, and I'll just go and see Dad, and I'm going to drive here and there. No. And you know, the fact that Boris got this means that this virus doesn't care whether you've got a title and you went to some posh uni, or whether you went down to comprehensive down the street. It doesn't care. You're going to catch it either way, and we cannot. Perhaps this will sort of heal some of the divides in society a bit, because it reminds us that we're all the same. There's no, with this thing, there's no one rule for them and one rule for us. We're all in the same boat.
Mm-hmm. And the good thing is that. I mean, I don't know, I really long to go out and have a coffee, and like we used to do. And we used to go out and have our meal somewhere. And it was a beautiful time, so we have to make do now. But, you know, I'm reading this, was live long and live well. And here they're saying, because I'm a lady of a certain age now, no, not quite, but getting there, it says it's never too late to start investing in your body. A study this year found that elderly people who have never participated in exercise have the same capacity to build muscle mass as people of a similar age who have followed and maintained exercise programs over long periods of time. So that tells me that I can still hope and lose a little bit of fat around my body. So hey, let's create good habits, live long, live well.
Absolutely. So now, funny you should say that, because I'm just thinking of live long and prosper. And the old Mr. Spock greeting, when he's not kind of pinching you on the neck and making you black out, from Star Trek. Now, We can't do the old handshake anymore because I forget how many zillion germs it transfers every time we do that. It's one of the worst ways, you know. So we've got to find another way. I mean, we can namaste or something. We could do the old elbow bump, but why not? Let's all go live long and prosper. We could make tomorrow Spock Day in the honour of the late Mr. Nimoy.
Oh, talking about so, do you know when some oriental people just go like that and
Yes.
they're looking at your shoes apparently.
I didn't. Are they envious? They're not
Just
that honestly. They're not
no,
good.
no.
They've been punished for months.
Apparently, if you wear nice, clean shoes,
Yes.
that refresh your personality. Apparently,
Oh, well, I don't know what it says about mine.
well,
Enough said. Wendy says, I'm quite frustrated by those who insist on getting together in crowds. They have we sensible ones trapped. Yeah, this is right, and this is really annoying because we well-behaved peeps, we've been at home now for nearly 3 weeks, so these other guys can congregate and continue to spread germs, and some of them will be spreading these germs without even knowing it. They'll be catching it and so forth and not have any symptoms. And this is very, very, very selfish and unfair. And some of these people who feel they're immune, out of the deaths today, more than 50 of the people here in the UK who died were not at risk. They didn't have any what they call comorbidities. There's nothing else wrong with them, and they were outside the age group of people who normally die. So they are risking their own lives up to an extent. They are hugely risking the lives of their parents, their grandparents, and these kind of people, and complete strangers. And most importantly, and most sadly of all, they are risking the lives of people who are in the medical profession, who without adequate protective equipment, who without, I mean, looking at Wuhan in the coronavirus outbreak, the medics there were in complete hazmat things where they're hermetically sealed completely in the thing with a hood all around them and sealed up at the cuffs and all this kind of thing. And what do our NHS have? Bin bag liners and hollow promises from the government, which is a disgrace, and we need to really focus on that. We need to focus as much energy into getting our medics kitted up and safe as we did on ensuring that the Prime Minister is making a good recovery. Now we need to focus now on spreading the love to everybody in the society. I think it's very, very, very important.
that's right. Yeah, we must just to get together on this one and just help as much as little we can. If there are some fundraising going on by other people that we know, and we ourselves doing a bit of our thing with the fundraising things to help the NHS, just to get as many funds as we can to them.
Absolutely.
One way or the other.
But, you know, private people shouldn't have to do that. Government should step up to the plate.
Oh yeah, but sometimes
No
we have to teach them
question about
how to do
No
it.
question about it. Now, here's some staff at a care home in Newcastle who've are trying to cheer up their residents a bit. What's the big change in their lives apparently is that the ice cream van doesn't come anymore around playing that irritating. I wonder if in ice cream vans that go to care homes play the irritating songs. You know, because I'm not quite sure, because, you know, obviously sort of kids of 5 years old will nag mum to open the old purse when that noise is going on outside. But I wonder if there's a similar situation amongst the residents of the care homes. I don't know, but basically, yeah, they've been they've recreated the experience of the ice cream van with their own online ice cream jingle. So you know, well, it is rarely that I'm speechless, but I'm speechless. And there's a beautiful picture there of one of the residents of these care homes who is passing a reassuring message to her loved ones that they shouldn't worry, and that she's absolutely fine. That's at the West Farm Care House in Newcastle, and that is an old lady sending a beautiful message to her family at this difficult time, and I think that is so nice. And in terms of we've been clapping for everybody, haven't we? But when I was young, there was a song called "Clap for the Wolfman." So clap for the Wolfman, he's going to get your record high, which was about a DJ in America. And I think I'll show you a clip of him,
yes,
a guy called Wolfman Jack, who was a real character, and he was one of the top 5 DJs, radio DJs of all time, alongside the UK's Kenny Everett, for example. And we've clapped for Boris, another kind of Wolfman, perhaps, and we've clapped for the NHS, who absolutely deserve it, and the other heroes, the people in the fire service, our police, and all these kind of people who were in the front line and exposing themselves for our benefit at this critical time, but turn the whole thing on its head, in Manchester Royal Infirmary, the staff came out to applaud an 84-year-old granddad who had recovered from COVID-19, and that's gone viral on Twitter, and more than 2 million people have seen that clip. They're all wearing face masks and aprons, but they're lining the corridors and applauding as this fellow called Solomon McFarlane is transported in his wheelchair towards the doors after being unwell for 2 weeks with the virus. You see, so there's really nice stuff. There's really nice stuff going on, and it was his grandson or granddaughter who it was his granddaughter who's got a lovely name, Rokaya, who posted that information to Twitter, which I think was very nice.
I wonder if there's a database of treatments applied to every single person, so we know what's working and what it isn't. It would be interesting if anybody's to put that kind of database together.
Yeah,
and there's treatments of a different person, success rates, and because at the moment it seems like we are just hitting everything and everywhere just to get people out. We are,
because we haven't got a snowball's chance in hell of knowing what works at the moment, and we're trying. I believe it's 300 separate clinical treatments of combinations of medicines are being tried at the moment, and in countries all around the world, when people are sharing their findings, because this is the great unknown. The body doesn't know how to deal with this, and can't produce enough antibodies and everything, or sometimes produces perhaps too many. So we are in uncharted waters here.
Yeah. That's what the COVIDiots, you call them.
I think it's a great name. I'm going to patent that at the end of this.
That's what the people who go out there don't understand, that this is not. I mean, I know a lot of people are conscious about how media perhaps manipulate sometimes the information just to keep us distracted in one thing because someone else is doing something else. That's an absolute true. But when it comes to these kind of viruses, we really have to pay attention as to the guidelines. Why? Because we don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. So the NHS is just getting overwhelmed by all this, and they need to find ways really to support and to keep everybody alive, because that's what they do. That's part of the Hippocrates, is it?
The Hippocratic oath. Hypocrisy is what politicians do. Different thing. Don't get them muddled. Yeah,
but what I'm saying is just common sense. We need to really hammer this thing that we need to keep indoors. It is overwhelming, believe me. I am very outgoing. I like networking hugely. I like going out for a cup of coffee with David for our meals, and it's constraining, but hey, there is a reason why.
Hey, my good friend Charlie Andrews has joined this evening. A good time, long time no see. Hope things are well for you. I still speak to Munsey sometimes on Facebook. Charlie was one of our DJs on a rock radio station a while ago called Rock Radio Network, and he posted recently on Facebook. I think his son or daughter came home from school with a media studies book about things going on 20 years ago, which is a heck of a long time when you're at school, and it had a picture of our radio station on it, which was so lovely. So I'm part of the history books already.
That's very good.
Isn't that a great thing? Now, medics in their suits that they use to protect themselves from these virusy things, it's a bit impersonal, isn't it? And such. And so one of the things they've been doing is they've been putting pictures of themselves and their names and their roles and things so that you can distinguish one of these suited up people from another. But some of them, which is a bit silly, have been pinning the things onto their hazmat suits. So if you've got a suit that's supposed to keep germs out, you make a great big hole which, compared to your virus, is about that big. Don't do that, fellas. Use gaffer tape or surgical tape or something. But that's not a good. Imagine if you were an astronaut and you pinned something on your spacesuit. You'd soon implode, or whatever it is that you do in outer space, which wouldn't be such a thing. So yeah, absolutely. Now there's a thing here about a couple of politicians who've made an interesting change of temporary and other public figures, because we had an appeal here in the UK for retired people to rejoin the National Health Service, because they knew that not only they were going to run out of ventilators and run out of beds, but they were going to run out of people to look after the patients in those beds. Because what use is a ventilator and a bed if there's nobody to sort of plug it in and wipe it or whatever you do to it and wind it up. And so some amazing people are stepping forward. The how do you pronounce the name of the Prime Minister of Ireland? Is it Taoiseach? Taoiseach? That's his official title. Anyway, his name is Leo Varadkar. He's offered to work 1 day a week as a doctor, which he's qualified to do. He worked as a junior doctor in Dublin before he quit medicine to become a full-time politician. That's a very nice gesture. There's a fella here who is a film director and showrunner. And showrunner has got nothing to do with running, in case you wondered. It's the guy who runs the show. And there's a guy called Thomas Lilti, who was actually filming a French medical TV drama. And he had quit work as a doctor to go into the heady world of television, but he's qualified. And so he started working in the hospital where they'd been filming their drama before they suspended a production recently. And there's a basketballer and a jiu-jitsu champion in France, Stéphanie and Julien, who are working as nurses now. There's a rugby referee who's returned to work at a hospital in Bayonne, and politicians are stepping up to the plate. In Hungary, there's an MEP who's stepping up, and an MP for the governing party in France. So all these people, and lots and lots and lots, and there's a whole long list. I'm not going to read all of them, but scores of politicians are returning to medicine. Some of them, like for more hours than others. Others who are still practicing politicians are doing this for a couple of days a week. It's nice that people are not just saying stuff; they're actually doing it. I'm a great believer in what they call putting your money where your mouth is. And I think that's it's wonderfully heartening to see that. There's a volunteer. There's a picture here in one of the papers of a volunteer in Slough with a mask on and a high-vis jacket, just so that the Germans can spot him and know to keep away. And he's delivering the shopping for a lovely lady standing at her doorway. But he's maintaining that 2 meter distancing thing. So because if she can prod him with her stick, then he's too close, you see. So that's the
What about people in lockdown? Why don't you pass me a little bit of gossip today in terms of one of these? Is it Demi Moore?
Is it
Demi Moore?
Oh yeah. Bruce and Demi, that those exes who had an amicable sort of breakup, really, and they were sharing the parenting and all that sort of thing, and then they moved on, and they both now have spouses of their own. Hello, Catherine. Long time no see. Obviously you won't be coming up to see me in Cambridge anytime soon, but another time later on, my living room awaits, and the lovely Irma here and I will make you a cup of tea. But yeah, Bruce and Demi, you might think that they would be going into lockdown with their respective spouses, but Bruce has gone into lockdown over at Demi's place, and Mrs. Bruce is not too happy about that. Would you be happy if I did something like that? Would you let me in again afterwards? Would you change the locks? You wouldn't find a locksmith to come and do it, would you? But I mean, that's a bit strange. Those Hollywood types are a bit strange, aren't they, really?
I don't know, probably because of the children. I don't know.
Well, indeed, it's
a nice piece of gossip anyway.
Indeed, I don't normally read any of that celebrity stuff, but it just
upon
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But upon closing my emails, that story just popped up as it did, and I just found myself drawn to it. Bruce and Demi for publicity purposes, posing in pajamas with all the kids around, and with her husband as well. So,
but this was a good lesson for everybody. Whose husband?
Demi's new husband was there as well, and Bruce.
Oh, that's
and
okay.
The kids.
That's perfect.
Yeah, but Mrs. Bruce is stuck at home somewhere else, self-isolating.
Yeah, well, that just happened. I mean, we need to all be civilized about those things. I mean, things happen, move on, and just keep going. So I don't have a problem. So yes, I wouldn't change the locks if that was your case. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't.
I thought you were about to say something. Anyway, no, yes.
Nope.
Okay, well, I will carry on. Here's a sort of editorial piece about hope, and the hope that has sprung out of this crisis, and the way that a lot of organisations, which normally might be super competitive with another, a lot of people who might normally not give one another time of day, have come together, so like, you know, in industry, you've got companies such as General Electric and Ford and many others, including Dyson, getting together to make ventilators, and things, strange things happen. Prisoners have been released because, you know, it was too dangerous for them to be in prison, basically. Loads of money has been sort of shifted around, and things that would have seemed completely impossible at the turn of the year when we were predicting. We were all making our predictions for 2020. I made mine as well. They were very carefully considered ones, and I got I think 6,000 views on Facebook for my views on how 2020 would pan out, and it was all rubbish. I tell you, it was all rubbish. You could have wrapped the fish and chips in it and thrown it away, because the events of this virus. I mean, you know, they would have been quite reasoned and sensible responses, all things being equal. But this force majeure, act of God type thing, just totally blew it away, didn't it? Really,
It's just amazing how, I mean, how we think we know it all. Yeah, everything's under control. Our happy homes, happy things, or clothes, shoes, car, everything is just there in place as we know it. So there it was, us building off Christmas, New Year's, making our plans, all
blissfully
things,
ignorant.
a couple of pages full of, yes, we're going to do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Then we go to a mastermind, half of our plans, or at least my plans, they just go out the window, so they go out the window, so make some new ones and accommodate others.
And now they've gone as well.
Yeah, that's it. I'm giving up.
And now we just dream of a trip to the shops together, don't we? We can't even do that anymore,
No,
because they'll
one at a
only let us
time.
in one at a time, because of our sort of habit of stuffing things into our pockets when nobody's looking, and then making a run for it. So I think that must be what it is. But all the cinemas, the supermarkets, cinemas are shut, and the supermarkets are only allowing one person per trolley at the moment. Most of the supermarkets have signed up to that, so the other half of us just wait outside coughing at one another.
Yeah, that's it. That's our world has changed completely and radically, and there's nothing as we know it.
Yeah, and our priorities have changed, and even as this lady points out here, a lady called Rebecca Solnit points out in the Guardian, our definition of we changes as well, in the same way that we're talking about Bruce Willis and Demi Moore. You know, we happen to be stuck with whoever we happen to be with when the old lockdown set in, and you drew a short straw, didn't you? My goodness, Emma, because you're stuck here with me right now. But
Yeah.
so even our very definition of who we are is up in flux at the moment because of this thing.
We can't go back to old normal anymore. So so we need to just make sure that the choices we're making are going to be suitable for the new world that is coming through.
And you know, you cut off the top of your finger while slicing the bread. Are you going to go back to A&E to have it stitched up as you might normally do? No, you put a bit of gaffer tape around it and hope for the best.
I keep saying,
Look, it held perfectly.
Like or if you have like an old cobweb, so long it's nice and clean cobweb, and you cut yourself, just stick it on it and just stop the bleeding.
Now, there's a thought. We've got plenty of them. But how do you tell how old they are? Is there like with trees, you can count the rings, can't you? I'm not sure if there's a similar thing you do with cobwebs. Maybe with a magnifying glass. Probably. I've got one here. Look, there's that. Ooh, you look all big there when I do that. Right. So a change. You know, a sea change in people's priorities, in people's attitudes, in you know what.
We're building an ecosystem. We're building a new ecosystem with social, economic, with families, everything, health. We need to really think very careful as to what we're gonna, because we know now that we cannot. I mean, that we're adaptable. We can change.
Yeah.
For the good.
Now, who knows who Jack Dorsey is?
No.
He's the boss of Twitter, and it's a handsome fellow. Looks just like me, actually.
Actually, yes. Got your beard.
There's a similarity. He's got the beard. His is a bit darker than mine, shall we say? But you know, he's got those handsome eyes and that wonderful demeanour. But anyway, and a lot of money.
Well,
and he is a billionaire, and he's going to give a quarter of his dosh towards the coronavirus global relief,
That's
which
brilliant.
is a absolutely magnificent gesture. $1 billion of his money is going to be given to help disarm, in his words, the pandemic. And he went on from Twitter also to co-found the company Square, which is a payments company, and he's donating $1 billion of Square shares to a charitable fund called Start Small, and he announced that on a tweet, obviously, and terribly appropriate. And Jeff Bezos, that Amazon dude, we know who he is, so I didn't even ask because we watched a documentary on him on Panorama recently on the BBC about what a lovely guy he is and the great work he's doing. And he said he is actually the world's richest person, which must annoy the heck out of Bill Gates. But anyways, he's going to donate $100 million to a food bank charity called Feeding America. Only 1/10 of what the Twitter founder is donating. Shame on you, sir. But still, better that than nothing.
The good thing is of these people, very wealthy people, they move in different circles to us mere humans. So it's a good thing that they are getting into really giving and donating to charity for this particular cause, because in that case, they gotta have an answer. There's got to be an answer to this coronavirus or COVID-19.
Absolutely so. Absolutely so. We were talking about breeding earlier, weren't we? And as you do, and I'd like to return to that topic now, and I'd like to go right around the world to the other side. Oh, and hello, Fiona, and hello, Anita. Fiona's just down the road from me in Ely, and she messaged me earlier to say that she would be joining us later. So you join us for the last 10 minutes or so of this, and we're actually crossing to your neck of the woods when we can make this thing work, because I'm working on a little kind of laptop. It's ever so nice, but it keeps dropping out. So and not connecting me to the stuff that I want to read. So if you will bear with me momentarily. What an extraordinary thing!
What's to do with breathing? Yeah.
It's shocking, isn't it? Really, I blame this company here that makes these things, because in order to stream, we have to use this phone for our internet temporarily.
That's it. Is that?
And well, it was on before, and so it keeps stopping and starting and jumping and ducking and diving, and we never had that when I was young. But come to think of it, we never had internet. So I think on balance, having these fancy things and having internet, we'll have to live with what we got there and go with the flow, I suppose. Now I'm going to give it one last try here, and we'll see if we can. I think we have.
Yes,
I think we have.
One.
I think we're on to a winner here. But the equipment gets tired, probably because I talk so much. I don't know. Hello, Lee. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're about to disappear to the other side of the world, which may or may not happen, actually, to look at the way in which... we've seen, for example, haven't we, in for example, Venice, we saw the swans coming back. And we've seen in I think it was Hertfordshire here in England, we saw wildlife. We saw deer wandering around the streets in the absence of automobiles, which I think nobody's going to particularly complain about when that happens, which was a very, very nice story. And now I'd like to take you to the Great Barrier Reef just off the coast of Australia, and we see that that's pretty clean as well. That because there's been a lot of problems with the Great Barrier Reef, with the oil slicks and this kind of thing.
They were dying. They were disappearing. Yeah.
And a coral bleaching episode is when chemicals and stuff get dumped, and this causes immense damage to these regions. But now apparently there is some cross breeding that's going on with the corals that are there to create super corals, and one of the things that corals don't like is the global warming and the rising temperatures and this kind of stuff. So work is being done, not just during this pandemic, but in general, to strengthen up wonderful, beautiful artifacts of nature and make them a bit more resistant to us.
Yeah. The days are going now in which we used to go, holidaying and everything, and get these kind of key rings and things with coral. That's gone. It's over. So we really need to look after on Mother Nature. And with this pandemic and with this stuff that finding ourselves stuck at home and our world's completely put behind us and emerging into a new world. Now we need to make the most of it in terms of making every day count with our families or without our families, with our the people that we are most in touch. We need to build a legacy we are here to make, build our journey in a way that we never imagined. And we need to live intensively and look with our mind's eye all the good we have created.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now,
That's what
yeah, I agree. I agree. That's very profound.
yes and no. I just want to wrote it.
It's fabulous. It's fabulous. One kind of thing I'd like to touch on now is the ability of our technology to help us in ways that a decade ago would have been impossible. And Apple and Google are getting together. Now, that's another extraordinary thing, isn't it? And they're going to try and help people to trace if they've been in contact, if they've been in close proximity to somebody with this virus. There are huge privacy concerns with something like this because, if the government was tracking everybody and knew where we all were and they could join up all the dots in that way, that would be a bit intrusive, and it would be like 24/7 surveillance and Big Brother and all that kind of thing. So Apple and Google have come up with a rather novel way to do this, and they're going to use Bluetooth. So your phones will be putting out Bluetooth signals and connecting with other phones, and then we'll know whether you've been close enough to somebody who's later identified as a COVID sufferer to mean that you should go and have a test yourself. And that could really make a huge difference, because after this lockdown is over, when it's a long and distant memory, which will be in about the year 2099, we will look back on these times, but we will come out of this lockdown. Probably my money is in June that it'll happen, and I don't think we'll see much movement before that because of the COVIDiots going out when they shouldn't be, going to parties, having barbecues, having the friends around and everything. It's so naughty, and it really it impacts the good guys such as us here and you guys. It impacts us because we have to stay at home even longer. But once we do also emerge, obviously we wouldn't want the government tracking our position in real time 24/7. I mean, they track where we're driving anyway with that number plate recognition system and everything. But look, at least we can stop at the side of the road and go and have a pee without anybody knowing. But hopefully, and not that we would. But this, I think, is an acceptable compromise whereby this data is not stored centrally or anything like that. But if you've been standing next to a coronavirus sufferer for longer than you should, the app, it doesn't even need an app. The phone will just, it's not even going to need a separate app. The phone will alert you to this. And I think that's a wonderful bit of tech moving forward. I'm not in favour of all tech, but I think that tech is pretty good. I also think sticking those ultraviolet things into hotel rooms to clean them and make the virus just disappear is a good thing as well.
I think everything's going to change in terms of hotels and everything, because they have to implement new ways of keeping those rooms available and suitable for whoever's going to take it over. Yeah,
we all need new ways of working, and the technology is keeping up with our needs, I think, in general.
I'm actually excited as to what's to happen after that, after all these lockdown.
Yeah, we're definitely emerging into a new world, and sometimes there are big events after which the world is never the same again. I mean, for example, the World Wars saw women doing a lot of jobs that are previously done by men, and then the men come back and pat them on the heads and said, "Oh, back to the kitchen, dear," and the women said, "What?" So kind of there are things that work to the good that come out of bad stuff.
I think yes, civilization is definitely changing for the good.
Absolutely,
it's a cooperative way of living. Yes, we are different, men and women, of course, obvious reason. But at the same time, we have the same intrinsic values inside. What is that?
Oh, and Wendy has sent a very nice GIF to our friend Paul of is that I'm not sure whether
It's a giggle.
is it Muttley from Wacky Races or is it Snoopy? But it's
Snoopy. I think
it's
Snoopy.
Snoopy having a snigger in the same way that the dog Muttley used to snigger in the cartoon show Wacky Races, which I was a great fan of when I was a kid. So now you can work out how old I am from that little cultural reference. So we're kind of drawing things to a close this evening. We never quite in these get as far as the sort of deeper bits that we're going to push into in the second half of these things, because there's always, well, it's because I can't shut up really, but there's always such a lot of chatter around the first half of the conversation that we don't get into the sort of, today I was going to talk all about contrarianism and that kind of thing. We'll have to push that back, unfortunately. So sorry if you just joined us, hoping for that.
The good thing with David is that he's a philosopher, yes. Yeah, you certainly are, and we have fantastic conversations in terms of how we would like to live life and what we would like to share with people, which are more deeper thoughts. But I don't know, it's just fabulous. So we have been talking about that this time of the COVID-19, we are in a place now to honor our bodies and to increase our wisdom and. At the end of the day, the environment that we are going to be living is changing for the good, and we're going to leave a nice legacy for our children, grandchildren, and after that, let's hopefully, the world is going to be better.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And I keep telling Irma that one of the reasons we're doing this, it's obviously to lift everybody's spirits, but this is something for the grandchildren as well to watch. So, hello grandchildren in the year 2059. Hope you're okay. Sorry we're not here to come to the birthday party, but we wish you well.
We didn't have a clue, but we done the best.
We did, and I think that's probably a good time at which to wrap things up. Thank you so much for your company tonight. It's been wonderful to have you with us in our home here. Because kind of that's where we are. We're not many people get to come into visit us because we're kind of
It's Friday evening. Have that glass of wine.
absolutely. We'd normally be out. We'd be out and about in the restaurant or the wine bar or somewhere or doing something or other at a concert. But here we are, and thank you for joining us. We'd have felt like real twits sitting here talking to ourselves actually. So it's great that you did come along. It's great that you did come along. That's a thing. Sometimes we have that on the radio and the transmitter's broken and I'm talking like blah, 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 and then after about half an hour some guy comes in and goes, we were off the air, don't you? And I go, oh, you could have told me sooner.
Goodbye.
Take care now and stay safe and stay indoors over this weekend. I know you will because you're smart. We're going to have to as well, and it's a bit of a pain, but the light is there at the end of the rainbow, at the end of the tunnel, or wherever it is that light is. See you next time.